Hi guys, welcome back to All Things International. Today we have another guest, Dr. Melusky. He is currently a faculty member at ODU and he is a part of the Department of Political Science and Geography. Some of the classes he offers include public policy, state and law government, morality, politics and policy, and women politics. His research agenda broadly examines the nexus between institutional rules and political behavior within the American states, with a focus on elections, policymaking, and the role of gender. So, everybody, please give a warm welcome to Dr. Melusky. And we are so glad that you have taken your time out of your day to do this.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. So, you have recently been awarded a Fulbright Scholar Award. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, so I found out just a couple of weeks ago that I will be traveling to Japan in September of this year, and I will be in Japan for 10 months.
10 months, that's quite a long time. Are you leaving any pets behind, any family behind?
Just a four-legged fluffy one.
Aw.
Yeah, so it will be a little hard to not see her for a bit, but definitely the experience of being abroad in a whole new culture and learning, what just different people and institutions have to show me and what I can really bring back to the States then.
So, what will you be doing with your Fulbright Scholar in Japan?
So my Fulbright scholarship is a solely teaching Fulbright. So I will be teaching classes on American politics. That's kind of the big focus is to help another culture and another country understand how our political system works. If you just think back to the last election cycle, right? The world was really looking in on US elections, and so much of it is that other people just aren't familiar with how our institutional structure is, right? We think about kind of what we learned, coming up from K through 12, right, of the three branches of government and what it means to be a citizen and how these branches work together, right? But that's very foreign to other people in other countries. So what I'll be doing in Japan is offering classes on basically the things that we love here, right? Introduction to American government, introduction to public policy, and state and local governments. So helping Japanese citizens understand how our system works, how it doesn't work, how the pieces kind of connect together, the problems we're facing, and then especially as we're a very powerful country on the world stage, right? What is the role of our country more broadly in the global context?
Will you be teaching these classes in Japanese or in English?
Nope, they will all be in English. So it definitely makes it very much more accommodating for me. I do have some Japanese background. I did a couple semesters in undergrad myself, and I've practiced a little bit here and there. As one of my friends who's a native speaker says, I have about the language skills of a 6-year-old. So thankfully, I will be teaching in the English in fully in English, so it'll make it a little bit easier. But that does also pose some challenges, right? With the students that are there, obviously, they're most of them will be native Japanese speakers. They will have English training, right? But there may be things that get lost in translation. So having to work through that, and as many of my students here know, I have a really terrible sense of humor. I tell a lot of dad jokes. I use some really outdated pop culture references. So finding the way to transmit those across the language barrier is going to be interesting or challenging.
Are you going to be updating your pop culture references to any Japanese pop culture?
I may have to. I mean, so one of the good things is I do have an interest in Japanese culture, so I can throw in some anime anecdotes and some manga and a little bit of video gaming as well too. So I think I should be good.
So, have you been to Japan before or any Asian countries?
Nope, I've traveled in Europe and South America. I've never traveled Asia before, but I will be heading there in June for leisure, just to kind of tour around. It was originally planned even before I had found out about the Fulbright, so kind of fortuitously, I'll be there, have a chance to kind of just, see the sights, take it in as a tourist before I'm effectively living over there as a American, work studying abroad or working abroad, I should say.
That's super cool. So, you had planned ahead of time to go to Japan.
Yep.
So when you applied to the Fulbright Award, were you expecting to be chosen to go to Japan, or were you expecting to go somewhere else?
I applied for the Japanese Fulbright for there. So the hope was that I would get selected, but the Fulbright, be it for students or faculty, it's competitive, right? So and especially a country as popular as Japan, it's one of those where you go in with low expectations, and then when you do find out, and if it is for the positive, you're over the moon. So yeah, I very much, applied. Your applications are due in September every year. So I dropped my application in the fall and, didn't hear anything about it until December when I made it into the semifinalist round. And then didn't hear anything after that until just a couple of weeks ago.
So have you applied to Fulbright before?
Yes, this is actually my second time applying. So this is my first award, but this is the second time I've applied. The first time I applied, I was unsuccessful. And it's one of these things where, with awards like this, right, there is a certain degree of persistence, right, where you learn, right? You don't receive feedback, right, when you find out about how far you made it through the award process. They don't give you feedback from it. However, just the process of applying, you learn kind of what was expected, right? There's training sessions and there's webinars and things that you can kind of take part in, and you hear about that. And so the first time I went into the process, I had a much different application in terms of the classes I was going to teach. I was thinking about some of the classes I teach here at ODU, right? And classes that I find really interesting and maybe other cultures of the world would. So I applied to teach basically American society. So I was going to teach a class on women in politics. And then I was also applying to teach a class, my class on morality politics, how we legislate sex, drugs, alcohol, all the vices in life, right? And I didn't make it through the first round. I found out at the beginning of December 2 years ago that my application was not going to be forwarded along, and that was kind of end of the road. But it gives you a moment of kind of introspection where you kind of think about what happened, you talk to people about it, and it's kind of one of those things where you're like, all right, I was proposing to teach to a country which is fairly patriarchal, very male driven, right? And also very socially constrained sense, right? A class basically then on women in politics, right? As well as a class talking about sex and drugs and alcohol in a very much more conservative social culture. So made me think about it a little bit more deeply, right? And I also reached out to a couple of other previous Fulbrighters, political scientists who studied in Japan, and got their feedback as well too. So, long story short, right? This is my second time applying, but I came at it differently this time around because I learned from the first time doing it.
Would you like to share your classes that you're going to be teaching in Japan?
Yeah, so I'm still at the phase right now. I've heard about my award, and I'm still waiting to hear back about one, where I'll be placed, and then two, what the needs of the specific program will be.
Mhm.
But at least what I applied to teach is Introduction to American Government, Introduction to Public Policy, and State and Local Government. So these are kind of the key foundations if you want to try to understand America, right, and our electoral or political system. Those are the things you really need to know.
Being an English major, I have seen like a lot of niche classes that other countries think are like why do they bother with something like that? And I think with your first group of settings, it was very American targeted versus going to Japan, which you did change. I think that was a good play on your part. But also seeing that they don't know much about the American system, I think that they're gonna learn a lot more and understand a lot more from it than maybe the other classes.
Yeah, I guess when you think about it, right, it's like so many of the more base classes, right? They're surveys, right? They're large amounts of information, but they're much more, even though it's a lot of information, it's in kind of like easy to consume chunks, right? Whereas when you're doing a very niche class, right, it's a very narrow segment, right? And you're really drilling down. And some of that, can be really difficult to kind of wrap your head around. So I think when you're applying for something like this, right, sometimes niche classes work, right? but also you have to find a home for them, right? And like you said, maybe we think they're phenomenal here. A class on, Harry Potter and whatever, can really speak to a demographic here, right? But there may not be a departmental home for it in another country where they're like, well, why would we don't even have a class like that, right? Like we have a student base that would never find that interesting, or maybe we won't get enough student support. So you have to be, I guess, a little bit strategic in terms of what you're putting out there, right? And then also understanding the limitations, right, of the people you're going to be teaching to, right? Like I said, they have very little base of this understanding of how the US works, right? It's going to be, in many cases, fundamentally different from their own system. So you have to think about something that they can grab onto, right, and really learn from, as opposed to struggling with something a little bit more niche to start.
So you did say that it's due in September and you get your feedback in December, correct?
Yeah, so the way the whole process kind of works is the application period starts right around now, actually. It opens up. And you can read about all the various awards on the Fulbright website and what's required of you. But then you basically have between now and September to put all those materials together. And it's a lot. I mean, that's one of the things is, right? I mean, for a faculty side, I mean, it's everything from a statement of your project, your resume, or from the faculty side, a CV. You have to get together letters of recommendation. There's usually a multitude of essay questions, in addition to just your project statement of what you want to do, that you have to answer. And that takes time to put that all together. But you have basically, like I said, from now until September to work on it. And it's not, it's the old, Rome wasn't built in a day. So you kind of chip away at it, chunk at it. And I think the thing to do with this is, and what makes it in some cases the most difficult is, you're limited in the space you have to work with. So your project statement, which is basically what you want to do, be it teaching or research or whatever, is only 5 pages. That's it. So yeah, you can only fit so much into 5 pages. Your essays, they are broken down by word limits. Is it 1,000 words? Is it 500 words? And you can't go over that. So you have to be very much like a surgeon with your words. You kind of have to go in there and kind of cut things out and tuck it together and make it as pretty as possible and say the most with the least, right? And that's where I think the most difficult part of it is trying to really refine it, polish it, and get it to the point where you can hand it to anybody and they're getting the same thing out of it. There's no ambiguity, there's no questions left in their mind. You have buttoned it up as perfectly as you possibly can.
How long did it take you to do all of that for your second time?
So thankfully, my second time, I had the basis there from my first attempt. My first attempt, I would say, probably took the longest, right? Because I was starting from scratch, right? I did have a couple colleagues in my department that they themselves had won Fulbrights previously, so they had shared the materials with me to help give me a little kind of understanding and background of what I was doing. But it took several months to put it all together. This time around, it was a lot of revising, changing, adding. It still took several months, but it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was as intensive because I had the foundations in place.
Do you have any tips for any faculty or students that are looking to apply for Fulbright and just tips on how to get the application process going, maybe thinking about what they want to do over there or how
Yeah.
to write the cover letter or how to format their resume?
Yeah, I would say a couple of tips there. And these are ones that I've received from, kind of coming up through it, as well as from colleagues who have received it. First and foremost is start early, because it's like I said, there's a lot of moving pieces there, and everything has to be in place on the deadline. That means all of your letters of recommendation, all your files. If you're going to a specific school that may require a letter of introduction, all of those pieces have to be there by that due date, right? So start early. The second also is just do it. I mean, I think so many people like dream of this, right? And it's kind of like the lottery, right? You can't win if you don't play, right? So, take the leap, take the jump, do it. And With that then also is be realistic in your expectations, right? I'm fortunate that I received a Fulbright to Japan, but Japan is one of the more popular countries. Everybody and their mother could want to go to Japan, so perhaps think about maybe another country in the region that maybe is not as popular, right? I had a colleague who went to Serbia. He previously had applied to other countries which were more popular and was unsuccessful. And then he changed to Serbia, which not as popular in terms of applications, and he got it. So sometimes, broaden your horizons, right? And then with it, just do it. And then, kind of finally with that is learn how to speak about yourself. Right. This is one of the hardest things I think for students, for faculty, for anybody. It's hard to talk about yourself in a way that, we look at it as like, oh, I'm boasting or I'm being too prideful. But no, like talk about your accomplishments, be proud of them. But at the same time, think about what those accomplishments are saying about you, right? What you're bringing to the table. It's almost like thinking about this as like a really complicated job application, right? They want to know about you. They want to know about what your vision is, and they want to know about how all that stuff connects together for you, your development, what you bring to the country, what you're going to learn from it, and how it all fits together.
I have talked with a lot of people, and everybody always says, just do it. Like, don't hesitate. Don't give up because you're not always going to get it the first time, but maybe the second time, maybe the third time, maybe the fourth time. Just keep at it because one day you might just get it, and it's going to be like the best experience of your life.
I think just that there's a certain degree of persistence that's required, right? And you hear stories of students and faculty that apply their first time and they get it their first time, and that's wonderful. But it is a competitive award, right? So there is a lot of people applying for it. It may not be in terms of what the host country is looking for at that moment in this year, but maybe next year, right? With a little bit of tweaking and going to a couple of the seminars and webinars and things, and you make yourself kind of what they want this year, right? And you just keep trying. And because the reality is, right, it's kind of a short-term pain for long-term gain, right? Yeah, it's a lot of work to put this together, right? But if you get it, it really is kind of a life-changing thing for a lot of individuals that have undertaken Fulbrights to the point where so many people that do the Fulbright, they want to apply again, right? It's that enticing, it's that life-changing, it's that impactful for them that they can't get enough. They want to go back out there and re-experience kind of that same feeling of total immersion in another culture.
Also, to touch on what you had said earlier, as your friend had gone to Serbia, which is a less popular country in the applications, would just like to say that it's for the experience and what you're going to learn from it. It's not like you're not going on vacation, you're not going there to have a good time and go out for drinks. You might, but you're going there to be immersive in somebody else's culture and to learn from them and to teach them new things and to connect with them on a higher level than looking at the touristy things.
And there's a certain degree when we think about what this is, right? It's intercultural exchange, right? So you're going into their culture, right? And at the same time as they're sharing their culture with you, you're sharing yours with them too. So yeah, there's going to be a certain expectation. Like, yeah, there's going to be fun, right? You can't, it's not 100. If you're there for 6 months or 10 months or a year, right? You can't be working, 9 to 5, 24 hours a day, right? So there's a certain expectation that you'll have fun, but having fun is also a way of learning another culture, right? Seeing some of the touristy things, eating some of the good foods, right? Going out for a drink, right? That's part of the process, right? And part of it also is part of the intercultural exchange is making durable and lasting friendships, right? And just think about how you make friendships in your daily life, right? There is fun. There is kind of exchange of ideas over meals and drinks and doing things. So it's all part of the process, right? Of how we share our culture and how we experience other cultures.
I think the takeaway from it is just don't be afraid to do something different and to try again and to really just sink your teeth in it and go for it.
And that's exactly it, right? I think the way to start is to dream a little bit, right? Log on to the Fulbright site, create a profile, start looking through all the different awards that are there. I mean, there are hundreds of them. And see what might be a possibility, what could work, for if you're a student, right? After graduation, right? What could work if you're a faculty member, right, on sabbatical, or in between things, and dream a little bit. That's the fun of it, right? Because this really is for many people a once in a lifetime opportunity.
So, how do you think the Fulbright Award is going to impact your career once you've finished your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about this a lot, and that's one of the things they also want you to think about when you're applying. I think from a teaching perspective, right, coming back to ODU, having taught for 10 months in a completely different educational environment, right, with different expectations, different social norms, I think it's going to help me learn some ways to kind of be a better communicator, right? I mean, that's what teaching is, right? We're transmitting knowledge, right? We're at the same time we're also helping people to consume that knowledge, right? So I think going into a culture like Japan, right, and them being a little bit more reserved, them being a little bit quieter, right, in terms of in the classroom, I'm gonna have to work a little bit there to get a little bit more discussion-based classwork out of them, right? To have those kind of fun, organic conversations that I'm used to here at ODU, right? So, and I think when I come back with that, right, that's going to help me with students that maybe in the classroom are not as communicative. They're not as loquacious. They're not as kind of over the top extroverted as I can be, right? So I think that method, right, that I'll kind of hone over there, I'll bring back here and it'll make me a better teacher here to our ODU students, right? Beyond that, right, it's seeing kind of other cultures, right, and how other people have been brought up and how they learn and what they bring to the table. And coming back to ODU, right, we are a diverse campus. It's everything from diversity as it relates to race, right, but also diversity in terms of economics and language skills, right? Kind of English as a first or a second language, and our students, so many of them are first generation college students, right? So it's all this diversity there. So this is more diversity, right? Going to another country and really immersing myself in something that is completely foreign is going to really help me come back and better relate in many cases to the diversity that we really expound here at ODU.
I agree that going over there and adapting to teach in another manner was is probably going to help majorly because there's so many different personalities within one classroom to handle as a teacher, even though college is much different than K through 12. Everybody's not as friendly as K through 12, so being able to go over there and kind of learn how to communicate with quieter students or students that may have a different experience or come from another country, I think it's going to impact very greatly on your work that you do here at ODU. So, I have one last question for you. What are some of the things that you are looking forward to going to Japan? Some of the sights to see, some of the food to eat. What are you looking forward to in your classroom? Are you looking forward to that first day? Is that very exciting? Just expand on that.
So my background of Japan, even though I've never been there myself, I've always been really intrigued by the culture. Kind of growing up, I've engaged in traditional Japanese martial arts. I still do to this day. I have always enjoyed, video games and anime and, Japanese culinary foods. When I went to undergrad, I actually started my undergrad as a Japanese studies major. So I was taking Japanese culture classes and Japanese language classes, and ultimately I switched and went down the political science track, right? But I think for me, right, this interest I've had in Japan, right, has kind of simmered for so long, and this is going to give me a chance to really experience something that I've been so interested in for so long, and really get to see it with my own eyes, taste it, feel it, right? And I think with that, it really makes the whole experience just so much more exciting, right? Like I'm looking forward to that day one, right? When I get off the plane, right? And I'm kind of like in a completely different culture and having to figure out how to get from the airport. to my university, right? When I walk into that classroom for the first time, and I think about how I walk into the classroom here, right? And everybody's talking and chatting, right? And it's going to be a completely different experience with different elements of decorum and in terms of respect and things like that, right? So it's excitement and also a little apprehension, right? It's kind of this, this is my first time really spending significant time immersed in a culture. I've traveled abroad before, but that's different. I've never studied abroad in my undergrad. I never have spent significant time abroad, outside of just vacation. So it's a little apprehensive, right? Kind of a little bit of fear there as well too. But that I think that fear, that uncomfortableness is the exciting part, right? Like when you're kind of pushed and pulled and you have to feel uncomfortable, that's when you grow. And I really do think trying the food, seeing the people, traveling around the countryside, it's so different from northern Japan where they're buried under snow down to southern Japan and Okinawa where like you can go swimming in tropical waters, right? Seeing all that, experiencing all that, I think that is going to help me grow. And hopefully by the end of it, it'll push me out of my comfort zone. And at the same time, maybe my Japanese language skills will maybe take me from that age 6 speaking to maybe age 7.
Hopefully, I hope you do get to practice a little bit here and there. Well, we would love to have you on the podcast after you come back, or maybe even during your experience over there.
We can definitely play with the time difference. It'll be like 12, 13 hours different, but
Oh, goodness, I forgot
yeah,
all about that.
we can do I can do a 5 a.m. there, 5 p.m. here, and we can make it work. But that's one of the things I'm playing with also is in the classroom over there, like I do here, I want to try to bring over some US government officials for to zoom into the classroom. And so got to play with that time difference. But no, I would love to speak to y'all, tell you all about it. I'm going to take lots of pictures. I'm going to, keep everybody updated. And then when I come back, I have many goals of working with a lot of the organizations on campus here, as well as in kind of the local community to share my experience and really just get students excited. Go travel, go see the world.
I love that. A lot of students think studying abroad, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Like you're only going to get this opportunity if you're currently in college. Like if you're currently an undergrad, currently a graduate, that's it. So I think you going and being a faculty member, it's really important to tell other faculty members about it and other people in the community and other people in political science about it because it just spreads awareness that you still have a chance to get out there and to go teach somewhere and to go learn about something that that you're passionate about.
Exactly. I mean, there are so many opportunities domestically and abroad, and it's one of these things, if you've got a dream, work towards it. Right? There are ways to build bridges and get you there. And it's just, it's something that you just have to kind of point your nose towards and eventually you'll get there.
Do you have anything left for our listeners? Anything that they can hold with them on maybe their process of applying for study abroad or applying for a job, applying for Fulbright, applying for anything?
I think, the final piece of advice I would say is cast your net wide. Like I said, there are a lot of opportunities, right? Don't be afraid to talk to faculty members. Don't be afraid to, just start Googling these things, right? And apply for them, right? So if you cast your net wide, you apply for a multitude of things, good things happen, right? But if you kind of pigeonhole yourself into one thing, good things may still happen, right? But you increase your odds if you cast your net wide.
Yeah, well, you guys heard it here first. Go ahead and cast that net real big and large and wide, and you might catch some fish, maybe some crabs, maybe some shrimp, who knows? Well, thank you so much, Dr. Melusky, for coming on here and speaking with us today. We would love to have you on here again.
Definitely. My pleasure.